Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Searching for Peace with me, Virginia Pond. This is a podcast of how ordinary people have come to find peace in their lives. Our interview today is with Lorraine Fisher. Lorraine Fisher was a wife and a mother of one child when her husband told her that he had been unfaithful to her. Because of his choices, he found himself accountable not only to Lorraine, but to the law. After he was arrested for his crimes, Lorraine found out that she was pregnant with their second child and gave birth a month after he was incarcerated. Lorraine had to deal with the situation that was left behind, not only emotionally, but financially as well. This is the story of how Lorraine has found peace with being forced into single motherhood and how you can too. How are you, Lorraine?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I'm super excited for this interview. You're actually somebody I went to high school with.
Yes,
those of you who are following that know that. And I knew you as Lorraine Floyd, and on our pre-interview accidentally called you Lorraine Floyd. But,
yes.
But I was reintroduced to you by you kind of telling your why story for Finnegan. But for me, just even hearing your statement of why, to be able to understand kind of where your life took you. Really, if you looked even 3 to 4 years ago on your social media, you would just think you had the happiest, most beautiful life ever created because you were just fun to watch. And then to be able to hear kind of what happened to you and your family and how it kind of affected your course. So why don't you go ahead and just kind of tell us your story?
Okay. So I'm currently in a place where I'm single again, but I 4 or 5 years ago was married, and the separation is actually fairly recent. So we would have been married 9 years, and we were what I thought was great. Life was happening and things were going well, and yeah, like every marriage has its ups and downs and struggles. Definitely, it takes work. We had some events happen that really changed the course of my life and our lives together. And basically what happened was my husband, he decided to be unfaithful to me, and that decision put him in a place where he had to answer to the law. So he had committed a crime. And at that time, I really didn't know the gravity of how my life was going to change. We had one daughter, and she was 2, almost 2.5, when he told me what he had done. And I think I was just, you have to process what's happening. So definitely traumatized, frightened maybe, but also thinking it's going to be fine. It's going to be great. Yeah. We're going to make this work. And you don't really assume ever that you're going to get divorced and you're going to be single, and that's not something that really anyone ever chooses for themselves. I think most people want companionship to some extent, but I definitely, with my religious, and faith background, divorce was never really a great thing, and it always seemed like it wasn't looked at as a great thing. So I never wanted that to happen to me, and I fought and fought and fought for things to work out. But basically what happened was my husband at the time, because of what he had done, he was arrested. He was put in jail. He was in jail for, I think, 3 months before we were able to bail him out. And then he was out for another 3 months or so until his sentencing hearing. And that's where they decide how long he will be admitted to prison. So he's actually currently incarcerated right now, and will get out on parole in December, but he's been incarcerated for 3 years. So yeah, it's been a crazy, wild journey, but being a mom and having a child and being married, you don't really think that something like that is going to happen, and the person that you care about and love the most is going to be ripped from your life so that you have to just survive. And that's pretty much what I did, and what my brain wanted to do was, it's going to be okay. You're just going to survive. So I started businesses. I joined companies. I was like, how can I make this work? How can I survive? I really didn't want to flounder, if that makes any sense.
So what was your moment of like, I have to make money for my family. My husband can't. I have to do it.
You'd think it would have been the moment that he told me because of the crime he'd committed. We didn't know what the sentencing would look like. I mean, it could have only been 6 months, and I can survive 6 months by myself, and then I'm fine. But we didn't know how long it would be. So it wasn't until a month or two after he was arrested and put in jail, and at that point, separated from us, that I was like, I got to do something. I'm taking care of us now. I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know the future, but I have to I got to get this show on the road. So it was at that point that I started like just being extremely insane with my life. I was teaching dance at the time and growing 2 businesses on my own until I could stop teaching dance and survive on the businesses by themselves. So pretty much just not sleeping. And I was pregnant also at that time. I found out I was pregnant soon after he was arrested. So I was pregnant that whole time that we journeyed into his sentencing, and then I had my son a month after he was admitted to prison. It's like, I have 2 children.
Yeah. So what was that moment like? Oh my gosh, I'm going to have another child. His child. I'm going to have our child. I'm going to have another child. What was that?
I don't think I realized it fully. I was just like, yeah, it'll be fine. It's going to happen. I think it wasn't until he was sentenced and permanently separated from us. I had to sell our home because I couldn't survive on my own to pay the mortgage. And so we fixed up whatever we had to finish. We sold the house. I moved into my little tiny apartment that I'm still in, by the way, 425 square feet. And we love it. But it wasn't until I was like in that apartment with Indigo, who was almost 3, and I was 36 weeks pregnant, and I realized that I was going to be very alone for the birth. It wasn't really until that moment. I think I was just so focused on like what I needed to focus on at the time that I wasn't thinking that far ahead. So that was.
So you were focusing on like the little things of life, like
right. Like I got to make money now, and I got to do this now, and what do I have to get done for my businesses now? So I wasn't really thinking ahead at all to that. And when those moments came, I was grateful for the people that came to support and help me, and even really through everything, because angels helped me survive that. Because when he was first arrested, I didn't have enough money to pay our mortgage or any of our bills because I was just teaching dance part-time. So people really stepped up to the plate to help with that. I really could not have survived without other people's help with my kids and with just finances, like people just paying my bills, because I was like, I don't know what to do. I can't take care of us right now. It's like the rug was just ripped out from underneath me. Yeah, it was pretty wild, but I think I just had decided I was going to make it happen however I had to. So after I had moved into the apartment and I was on my own and I realized, hey, it's just me and I'm going to have this baby, I just decided I had to make it work, however. And those were the moments that really, I think, I started to grow personally the most and discover myself over the next few years of being separated and us having a routine and visiting him and everything, and having a newborn. Quite a journey to just be at home and a mom, but also surviving and growing businesses at the same time. It took, a lot of work and discipline, but everyone, each personality type is so different. And for me, I'm normally not this way, but I become a bit like over organized and like a taskmaster when I'm under stress. So that's kind of what I became during that experience, is this like really intense person of myself, which I kind of came to think that that's how I was all the time.
Yeah. It was like you couldn't control what was happening, and so it's like I can control like how clean my dishes are, and I can control like exactly what we're doing throughout the day, and I can control all these other things.
Exactly.
But I can't control any of the other stuff.
Exactly. And that was ultimately what it was, is when something like that happens to you and you're a bystander in it, right? Like this experience happened to me and 2 other people were involved, and I'm just like kind of the one on the outside that people don't always think about.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I have to control what I have control of, which was me, and doing what I had to do to take care of me. So I absolutely focused on that more than anything else. And I think that whole concept I'm really fascinated with now, because I see people that have gone through, amazing and horrible and horrifying things all in one. And everyone deals with them in their own way, but ultimately we have control of only us. So
Yeah. What was that first meeting like when you first saw your husband with your children? When the first time that you and your children were able to see him in that position and you knew that you were not able to take him home?
Yeah, it's funny. I have a close friend that went through a similar experience, and she told me how she just cried the whole way home. And I think almost because she told me that, I didn't. I was like numbly stoic. Like, it's okay, I'm a robot. And I can almost say that repression of my negative emotion from the trauma, I had repressed so well and so long that everyone thought that I was like 100% okay and everything was great. And I was so good at being that way that it just seemed fine. So I don't even remember crying at all. I don't remember it being a big deal. I remember walking in and being a little bit nervous, and then we saw him, and it was like, hey, no big deal. I remember being a little bit emotional afterwards, but it became a routine, and I just accepted it. And I didn't really let my emotions come up because I thought I didn't need them or thought I didn't need to process them, which is hilarious because I've gone through a very different journey in the last year as I've chosen to separate myself from him. But yeah, your emotions you can't just bury like that. And I didn't know I was burying them. I think I thought I was fine. I had friends that would be like, you should probably go to a counselor. I was like, I'm good. And they watched me through the years. I grew my businesses. We went and visited him. Everything was fine. But I hadn't actually processed all of the emotion from the trauma and really grieved what happened to me. And when I started doing that, that's when reality really set in.
Yeah. So how long was the process for you of the suppression, and then what made you realize that you needed to grieve for the family that you lost?
So it was 3 years in March that he was incarcerated into prison. So for 2 years, I was robot, awesome, I got this. And it was April of last year, of 2018, that I was actually, it's a specific moment I can remember now, and it's very vivid in my mind because it was like the start of the ball rolling of me discovering what I discovered and realizing more of that I hadn't processed anything that happened to me. I was at a corporate event for Senegence International. It's a makeup and skincare company I distribute for. And you know, they always have motivational, inspirational speakers at those kinds of events, like a seminar. And she was speaking, and she said there's 2 things that people tell themselves that are very untrue. And they're the most damaging, limiting beliefs that we can have about ourselves that take you away from growing personally or growing a business or doing the things you want to do in life. And it was one of those that really rang true with me. And those words were, I am unworthy. And I remember when she said that, how I felt. And it was like a zing right to the heart, right to the solar plexus. And in that moment, I asked myself, but why? Because up until that moment, I was successful, I was doing great, things were fine, I was taking care of us. I was like, life is going awesome. Why would I be telling myself that? That doesn't make any sense. And come to find out, that's something I've been telling myself my whole life. But that was the moment that I was like, I need to discover why I'm telling myself this. And I started a journey of learning about all the things, you know, personal development. I got into the life coaching model and thought work and everything about law of attraction and energy work, everything that has to do with the brain, the body, and the mind and the spirit, and how everything's connected. And as an entrepreneur, that's a fairly common interest that we have because we have to force ourselves to work. So there has to be some discipline there. But that was the moment I started really diving into myself. I felt like up until that point, I was really good at training my team on this is what you should be doing and this is how you can be successful in your business. But I wasn't truly applying it to myself because I didn't feel the need to. I was doing well. It wasn't until I started feeling these emotions and they started to creep in that I noticed something was wrong. And yeah, over the course of that summer and the next fall, everything just started to change. I started feeling emotions I hadn't felt before, and I started looking at my life and my marriage more objectively, and everything just bubbled up. I mean, and I had so many emotions that I had suppressed. It just started to change everything for me. I started to really see everything in its true light. And everyone else around me noticed too. They were like, you're finally on planet Earth.
You're finally... That is crazy.
That's the reality, though.
Yeah. So you talk about how all of these emotions are bubbling up. How did you get through that? What did you focus on to deal with all of these emotions? You have them. How do you deal with them?
So the life coaching model, and actually a lot of attraction books will talk about this as well. You have to process your emotions and feel them. We as a society love to suppress our emotions and we like to hide from them. And the fascinating thing is it's not just negative emotions, it's positive emotions too. Sometimes when we're uncomfortable, even if it's positive emotion, for example, praise, or negative emotion like shame or guilt or anger, we like to suppress them because we don't want to feel them because they're uncomfortable. So as a society, we've come up with so many ways to suppress our emotions. And some of the life coaching podcasts and people that I follow, Brooke Castillo is one of them. I love her, and Jody Moore. They're both certified life coaches. They teach that you have to feel your emotions. You can't suppress them. You can't, quote unquote, buffer them away. You can't Netflix them away. You can't eat chocolate them away. You can't overeat them away. You have to feel them. So it's a very conscious thing, and it takes a level of major self-awareness for you to realize when you're feeling something and where that's coming from, because our thoughts and our feelings are connected. Every thought creates a vibration in your body, and sometimes feelings come from thoughts that you're having subconsciously that are about the past or about trauma or things that you're not really conscious about. So sometimes they're hard to track, but those feelings are meant to be felt, whatever they are. And in those moments, I had to just sit and breathe and say it for what it was. I'm feeling anger. I'm feeling loneliness. I'm feeling resentment, because those were very strong when I started feeling them and realized I had to feel them. There was no more happy Lorraine has to be happy all the time. Life is positive. As much as I want my life to be positive, and I do choose to try and, make my body feel positive vibrations now, when you're going through a traumatic experience, you have to feel those negative emotions and you have to let them out, because if you don't, they will come back for you later. So I realized I had suppressed them so long that there was just no more suppressing them. And whatever it was, maybe experiences in my life, people I had met, I'm sure there were a lot of different, little tokens here and there that helped me get to that place where I started feeling those, and I couldn't deny them anymore, and I knew exactly why I was feeling them. So I started to just let them happen. And I did some crazy things. I mean, when we're feeling that way, we sometimes make choices that we look back on and we question, but I just let myself feel them. And I tried from then on that I was going to just feel my emotions, and I needed to. I had to feel them. I had to just crawl up in a ball and wail, right? I had to just sit there and feel the uncomfortability of the pit of my stomach or whatever I was feeling and the things I was thinking about because of what I had experienced. So that is key. We just have to feel them. And it's breathing through them. It's not, oh, I should go eat some chocolate. And what's funny is most people will go and start doing those things, and then they don't even know why they're doing them. But if they took a moment and stepped back, they'd be like, wait. Why do I want to go eat that ice cream so bad right now? And they would realize that it's because they're feeling some sort of negative emotion they're trying to repress. So I've tried, and I'm very much still trying and learning to feel my emotions and take them for what they're worth. And then after that, deciding how I want to feel.
What would you normally do, like past Lorraine, what would she normally do to repress her feelings?
Oh, everything. I'm good at eating sweets to suppress. I think as a society it's kind of a joke, right? Mom, at the end of the day, is tired and she just wants Netflix and her chocolate. But the reality is that is a form of buffering. That's a form of suppressing negative emotion and not managing your emotions throughout the day. So I still laugh at those things and can enjoy them when people joke about them, but I, for myself, take those more seriously. I don't want to be doing those kinds of things to suppress them. So yeah, I was great at overworking. I was like, if I work like a crazy person, I won't feel any negative emotion. So I just worked myself into the ground. Just worked.
Yeah. It's crazy for me, like how a lot of us go through the same things. Honestly, we're kind of copycats of each other, but it's the different ways that we're able to deal with them, because we have all different vices and all different virtues within us, but it's how we deal with all of those things to be able to relieve ourselves from our emotions and not have them control us. One quote that you actually posted the other day that I totally loved is, I'm never in control of what happens around me, but I'm always in control of what happens within me. And that's the only thing we can control, is not even what we feel, but how we deal with our feelings, how we deal with them.
Absolutely. It's true. And I think as a society, we have chosen to not feel our feelings. Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. Everyone has figured out their own ways of not dealing with their emotions and being honest and open about them and saying them out loud. So it's such a new but refreshing experience to look at myself that way now and be extra aware of why I'm doing what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling through everything.
Okay, so I kind of want to take another turn because there was a couple times when you went on your live Facebook chats and you would talk about things that I would never even think of that a family with a family member in prison would have to deal with.
The first thing that comes to my mind, the weirdest thing, is how to classify yourself. Because when I first was living as a single mom, quote unquote, with my husband in prison, I wasn't really a single mom, right? I mean, what was I? I was a married woman with her husband in prison who was alone by herself with her children. So I felt like I didn't really fit in with the single moms because I still had someone that I could talk to and visit. And so I didn't feel like a single mom. So that scenario was really weird, especially being a member of my church, which I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so it's like, well, where's your husband? Like, what's your story? So I always felt like, especially in that fear, it was a bit weird at first. And I'm a fairly open person. I'm pretty blunt. I'm to the point. So I didn't mind sharing, but I more felt for the people that I was telling this to. Like, as soon as I tell them, they're going to be uncomfortable. I'm not sure what to say. Yeah. So I was sometimes hesitant to jump straight to that shit, but it's like, yeah, my husband's not at home actually, he's in prison. And just saying it that way slightly horrifies most people. They wonder what he did, they wonder what happened. You know, it's like there's instant fear. So I'd say that was probably the weirdest thing. And the hardest thing is just the separation, right? I'm supposed to still support him, but I'm on my own, so I need to support myself. And that tug and pull of him feeling like he got the support he needed and me taking care of us was really hard for me over that time.
I remember another thing that you talked about on your live cast is like then talking about like where are we going to live when he gets out. You talked about how like, with apartments you have somebody in your family that now has a criminal charge on their record, and it's like, now what do I do with that? For me, that was like, oh my gosh, she has to then deal with the after effect of it. It's not even like in the moment not having your husband and not having him be a part of your family. It's the after effect of all of those choices.
Right. And it's funny because people who've gone through this, because I have a few friends that are in a similar situation or just met a lot of people, right, at visiting that have family members incarcerated. And they always say, yeah, just you wait. Parole is so much worse than them being in prison. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. I've been raising these children by myself. How could it be worse? How could it be harder? And yeah, to be honest, that was a part of my decision to separate myself because I didn't want to live that way. Everyone said it's so hard, and that it doesn't get easier. You'd think with that person home and helping it would be easier, but you can't just get an apartment because most apartment management companies will not rent to felons. So it was either we bought a home or I rented from someone I knew, and those were pretty much my options outside of living with someone that we know. Yeah, definitely restrictive in that way. Makes it complicated for sure.
Well, and then you just want to be able to be a family unit.
Right.
That's the whole goal, right? Is like you sacrifice for these 3 years or however long, and then the goal in the end, the prize is being able to be a family unit. So then when they tell you basically you can't be a family unit, then you have to choose again. You have to make a choice again for your family.
Yeah. It is. It's complicated. And everyone's situations are a little bit different with incarcerated spouses or family members. Some, it's easier. With our situation, it was more complicated because of what had happened. So I had to just try and figure that out. But even then, it would have been, I don't know, maybe another 6 months to a year until we were actually living in the same space after he got out. It's just not that easy. They don't make it easy for anyone. And I feel for those families because that just sounds horrible.
So for Indigo and Red, your two amazingly adorable kids, what do you tell them? What was like kind of the first train of thought? Has your train of thought changed of telling them where Dad is right now?
So Red's still pretty young. He's 3. We've been calling prison Papa's work for the last 3 years. I figure he works in there. I'm not exactly lying.
No.
Because they can't really understand prison. So we've been calling it Papa's work. We're going to go visit Papa's work. So we're going to visit him at work is kind of how I saw I was explaining it to them. And we'd been telling Indigo that for years. And it really only was recently that she kind of started noticing things. And she's 6. So I was like, it's time for me to tell her that it's not just work, that this is prison. And of course she's going to ask why, and we're going to tell her why, and she deserves to know that. So it's definitely been a hard but unique experience. So we still call it Papa's work. I told Indigo, hey, Red still thinks it's Papa's work, so we're just going to still call it that. He doesn't really understand what prison is. So we still call it that, but she knows the truth, and she knows generally what happened in very, very simple terms, why he's there. And, we still go visit, and it's fine. And, I'll have to probably re-explain when he's out why they can't see him. And it will be hard, but it will be okay eventually. But with the divorce, that's obviously complicated it to a little bit of an extra level for Indigo, because she's been looking forward to Papa coming home for all this time. So she's doing counseling as well as me right now, which has been really helpful for her just to understand what divorce is and why. And she does. I think it's been good for her to go through that and be able to actually process some of the trauma she experienced, because she was there when he was arrested, and it was a fairly traumatic experience for me, and I'm sure for her. And
I didn't realize
really
that you were there when he was arrested.
Yeah, we were going to try and make it so it wasn't a surprise like that, but it happened anyways. Yeah, it was the whole shebang. Like, we were at home hanging out. I think it was a beautiful day. Tomas walked outside for a minute, and as soon as they saw him, we didn't know they'd been scoping us out. They came in running, and he ran through the door and tried to shut the door behind him, but was yelling at me that they're coming. And Indigo, I think, was in the living room. Like, they ran right past Indigo. She was screaming. And yeah, they didn't get very far. The house isn't very big, so they got just to the back of the house, which is where I was, a little bit further back, and they arrested him right in front of me. Yeah. So not a good experience to go through, definitely, and I've done my best to work through that trauma. So yeah, it wasn't my favorite experience to go through, but
I would assume not. So for you, what was kind of like the deciding factor of, I need to tell Indigo, I need to tell her what's happening, I need to explain it to her? What was kind of like the light bulb in your head, mom moment, and what made you decide you just doing it and not doing it with her dad?
So it was because of the divorce. After I had decided that was going to be the best option for us, I was like, well, Indigo should know where he is and why. Then she's going to wonder why we're getting divorced, and she's not going to fully understand unless she knows that too, because that's a part of it. That was a part of my decision to divorce. So, yeah.
So if you, just looking at your life and looking at the situation, where have you become stronger as a human?
I really think I was able to grow, differently over the course of the last few years. I mean, even when I was repressing all of the emotion and growing my businesses, I learned how to be more disciplined. I learned how to manage my time. I learned how to be an entrepreneur and grow and be focused and learn how to do sales and the things that I'd never before done in my life. I'd never been in that kind of a position or job field before. Yeah. So I grew that side of me during that time. And then again, the last year, I've just grown a different side of me. Okay, I know this entrepreneur side. Now it's time for you to learn how to feel your own feelings and realize why you're doing the things you're doing and what you've been through and why you have these triggers and different things I have to deal with because of the trauma that I'd been through. So I think it's a combination of both over the course of the last 3 years. I couldn't really just pick one.
So then for you, how are you able to create the balance between work life and motherhood and then self-care? So you feel like you're able to be a holistic person?
That is a great question. So managing your time, I'd say, is the number one thing. And there's a lot of other aspects to this, but learning how to manage your time, learning how to say no, and learning how to do things for you. Because over the course of the last few years, even though I was taking care of our children at home, I really felt very loyal to my husband at the time, and almost to a point where it was unhealthy. And I wanted to take care of him even more than me sometimes, which is not a healthy headspace to be in. You have to take care of yourself first. And when I realized that, I started in every moment deciding, am I doing this for me, or because I feel like I should be saying sorry, or because I feel like I should say yes to that thing they want me to do? So it goes back to that self-awareness. So I decided to be more self-aware and do things for me that I knew were best for me, but also learn how to manage my time and do the practices I knew would be benefiting my soul and my spirit so that I could be a mom, but also work my business. So I have a routine, and I stick to it fairly strictly, even though I'm actually on vacation right now. I'm in Portland visiting my sister, which is where we grew up, Virginia.
Yeah. What? Hi, Gerd.
But even when I'm traveling, I wake up and I do the same mind work things that I know will benefit me, and I time block my whole day with my business work and with my life things. Spend time with Indigo, go to lunch with my sister, and then, create content. So it's definitely, time management is huge, as well as just being aware of yourself and knowing that you're doing the things for you and not for someone else. Because the average mom will go and give, and then they say, go get a pedicure or go relax, go watch a show. But that's buffering away negative emotion. That's not self-care. Self-care is waking up and getting your headspace into a healthy space so that at any moment during the day, you're not going to blow up as a mom. You're going to say, it's okay, you're a child, and that's what children do. And I'm not going to expect anything different from you, because if I give you a bowl of popcorn, you're going to get it everywhere. Right? So it's definitely a combination of both of those.
Well, and that's the crazy thing, is like our society is totally driven by that, where it's like you give forever, and then like, okay, you get like 1 day of self-care. Like, oh, you get like 2 hours, like a moment. Yeah. And for me, myself, that is where it's really, really rough on me. But through all that 2 weeks or a month or however the time it is, you're like kind of suffering. And sometimes it's hard to even use that word, where you're suffering or you're grieving or you have pain, but it's like you're having all of this trauma in between those moments, and then you're buffering, you're still even then suppressing in those moments. You're still suppressing in the moment of, oh, I get to go watch a movie by myself, or, oh, I'm going to eat this piece of chocolate or eat this cake or whatever. You're still not feeling any of the things that you need to be feeling.
Yeah, a mom will build resentment, and it's happening subconsciously. She thinks she's doing good, and then, when she blows up later, she doesn't realize exactly why, but it's because she's not aware of the things she's feeling in the moment and letting herself feel them and deciding in the moment, at any moment, I'm angry right now, and I'm just going to feel this way. And, yeah, those are the things that completely change your life when you're able to manage them and balance them. You won't build resentment anymore when you're really aware of what's happening. And when you go get a pedicure or eat a piece of cake, you're going to feel really good while doing that, because you chose to do it for you.
Yeah.
Because you wanted your feet to look nice, not because you're trying to suppress negative emotion. We think that those things, quote unquote, unwind us, but they don't. They distract us from the emotions we're feeling.
So we're going to go a little bit in a total different direction for a second.
Okay.
How do you respond to questions regarding your family choices and your family?
Well, in my scenario, it was fairly public, so those that know my situation know what happened. It was all over the news, so it's easy for people to, I guess, agree with my decision, if that makes any sense. I had people that were like, you're not divorcing him right away? What? And I didn't want that. I never wanted that. And I'm a person that is pretty easy to forgive and quick to forgive. And I do believe that people can change and people can grow. So that was never going to be a quick decision for me. It was definitely a much longer, thought-out choice when I came to that. And there were other factors involved in making that decision. But honestly, now people are glad. And I know that that might come out a little bit harsh, actually, but that's the truth. Most of my close friends are relieved that I've chosen this way, and it's complicated and hard. And I'm very close to his family and was very close to his family and loved them dearly. And I know that that's not something they wanted, and that's not something that they really agreed with necessarily, and were confused and didn't really enjoy my decision to divorce. But the reality was, most people in my situation, knowing what happened to me, kind of say, hey, we're so glad you're taking care of yourself and doing what's best for you and your family.
Yeah, because right now you're the matriarch and the patriarch. You're both.
I'm it.
You're it. You're the boss lady of not just your work life, but also of your family. How have you found peace with your situation?
I think the biggest amount of peace that can come for me was through maintaining my faith and my religion, my belief in God, or whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe in, spirit, universe. My belief that there was something out there that was a positive energy that was looking out for me, and that things were going to happen in the right time, and that things will happen when they're supposed to, and that I can trust this being that I believe in, which for me is God. That gave me the most peace, because in those moments where I had heightened trauma, anxiety, and I didn't know what I was feeling, and I couldn't sleep very well, and this burning sensation wouldn't leave me, it wasn't until I realized it was because I was trying to control something I couldn't control, and I needed to let go of it and just let the timing happen and let the chips fall where they would. It wasn't until I let go of myself and kind of gave it up that I felt peace. And that was through everything, through the first arrest, through trying to bail him out, through being on my own, building businesses, financial struggles, really everything. And even now, it's a daily thing that I do every morning, part of my routine. I'm grateful for the little things that happened. I say things like, it's going to be okay. It's going to happen like it's supposed to. And I'm going to be led in the direction I'm supposed to. And things are they're just going to be okay. And having that kind of trust in a higher power has given me the most peace. And I don't know that I would have been able to survive very well without it.
Wow. Well, thank you for being open to share your story.
Absolutely.
And it's such a great story to tell. Thank you so much, Lorraine.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Lorraine Fisher is an entrepreneur and makeup artist with Synagence International, and also the owner of Lorraine Fisher Photography. You're able to follow her on Facebook and Instagram for any of your makeup tips on Lucid Beauty by Lorraine. And to book her for a photo shoot, follow Lorraine Fisher Photography. On the next episode of Searching for Peace, we will be with Andrea Enright. She will tell us how she has come to peace with grief after losing her husband of 4 years to cancer. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe.